Hello, Dennis Young here, and podcast series two. And I have a real special guest today, Theo Travis, who's played with everybody, discography just amazing. And Theo, thanks for doing this.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, oh, of course. So I guess we could go back to your beginnings of school and how you got interested in music.
Yeah. Well, like many people, I started hearing records. I've always been a big record listener, probably around 12, 13. I started on the Beatles, but around 12, 13, I got into Yes, particularly. Going for the
Oh,
One
okay.
was kind of a big entry point for me. And there's lots of progressive music from sort of 1967, 8 to 74, the classic period.
Oh,
And
you
then
was.
bands like, as I say, Yes, King Crimson, Pink Floyd, a bit of Gentle Giants, Roy Harper, all sorts. Steve Winwood, as a big Traffic fan. I said lots of Beatles and connected things. So, I listened to a lot of that, and I was already playing classical flute.
Oh, okay.
So I think from the classical flute, I started playing with people and improvising. My sister had a saxophone, so I kind of borrowed my sister's saxophone and started on that.
How about that?
And then I kind of, got into it more. And then I joined some friends in our first band. And then very much, I kind of went into the jazz thing pretty deep for quite a while, really. Starting my own jazz band, playing jazz clubs and things. But I was always listening to a broad range of music. And then, a few years later, I got invited to play with Mick Kahn, Steve Jansen, Richard Barbieri, guys who'd been in Japan. And there was another guy in that band, a sideman, a guitarist called Stephen
Right.
Wilson. And we
Oh,
became
yeah, of
friends.
course.
And then that kind of led to more getting back into progressive things. Then, a couple of years later, I was invited to tour with Gong, the band Gong.
Oh, I know them
In
very
fact, I see your
well. Look in the
picture.
back.
Yeah,
I
in
have the
fact. So
posters.
then I was invited to tour with Gong. And then they kind of liked me, so they sort of said stick around. And Didier didn't want to tour. Didier, the Malherbe, obviously the
Oh,
original
yeah.
main. So he didn't want to tour, so I kind of stuck around, and we did an album, Zero to Infinity, and then toured a lot of that. And then, that kind of led to other things. And then my connection with Steve led to
Oh, yeah.
recording on the Stupid Dream album and Bass Community. And then through Jazz Connections. So you just kind of find you're on the scene, and one thing leads to another, in a way, and connections make more connections. And especially if you're doing music you really have a feeling for and really like, and,
Right.
you can kind of, it resonates with you. So, you'd sort of just put that extra bit in, I think. And, whereas a lot of jazz players would be great jazz players, but they weren't that interested in, rock or progressive rock, maybe.
Right. Right. That's what
I
helps with
was.
you.
I was. So I think that's kind of led me down the path that I've gone, really, from the beginning, I
You,
would
you've,
say.
you've done a lot of jazz records. What, 11 solo jazz records?
Yeah,
Talk about
yeah. Well, I
that.
started off doing that, writing music for my own jazz. I kind of put my own jazz band quartet together pretty early. I had a quintet first, and we'd play around these jazz clubs around Britain. I was studying music in Manchester in the north of England, and
Right.
there were
See
quite a few
that.
clubs near there. And then when I moved to London, I put a band together and making records and touring around, and that was very much my focus for quite a while until I got more back into the progressive side of things, really more maybe more experimental music. And but
Were
the
you
jazz
playing?
thing, in fact, the jazz music I tended to do in my quartet, there was a lot of influences. I mean, I love a lot of classic jazz, but there was a lot of influences of maybe more progressive experimental music. So I would have like 12-minute pieces. Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
Right, I'm going to let her out. Hold on.
Okay. That adds to the show. That adds to the show.
You can always edit that out.
That's great. No, that's all right. It adds to the show.
Okay.
And then,
We
and
love
then,
dogs.
so did you play like Ronnie Scott's and all those jazz
Yes. So
influential clubs?
there was a good few years where I would play Ronnie Scott's maybe for a week, twice a year. So I had my band and we were doing a lot there. So yeah, that's a wonderful club, and it was always a real special occasion playing there. and I got to play opposite, some really great people, because you would have a week doing your set, and then they'd have another band on, and great people would come to the club, and and it's right in the centre of Soho in the West End of London.
Right,
so
right.
Exciting place to be, and great to have 6 gigs on the trot with your own band.
Right, it is.
So yeah.
And how did you get involved with the soft machine legacy? That was an interesting offshoot of jazz.
Again, so that was in 2006. So the link was, I'd been playing with John Etheridge for over 10 years.
Okay.
I've been playing with John Marshall for over 10 years, 12
Oh,
years.
wow. He's a legend too.
And I'd been playing with Hugh Hopper, not so much. But when Elton Dean was very ill, they needed someone to fill in. And because I knew them well and was playing with them already, and they knew I had this interest in kind of crossover music and, a broader sort of experience than many jazz players, they kind of thought I'd be the right guy. And hopefully they were right.
Well, I saw some of your videos, and you really crossed over into some of the progressive sounds. You guys really are not just a standard jazz band. It's just a lot of great improvising.
A lot of stuff that goes on. There's a lot of experimentalism. There's a lot of influences from, very broad range of music. And a lot of that, is absolutely what I like. I like electronic experimental. I like free improvisation. Right. I like sort of noise music. I like heavy music. I listen to a lot of classical music. So it's a sort of band that really sort of invites and develops on a broad range of influences, which for me is perfect, because I like so much different music, and loop music and ambient music, etc. So it was great for me, and it felt very much like a musical home.
Have you watched some of those early videos of Robert Wyatt with Kevin Ayers and
yes, that's
Rutledge?
Right. Kevin Ayers. Some of the early
stuff.
ones with Lynn Dobson, fantastic. And of course, I played like 10 years with David Allen, who was like one of the.
Oh, that's what I got to talk about. I want to hear about David Allen, because I've seen him a number of times.
That connection with the original idea behind Soft Machine, I was very plugged into, because I knew David well, and Soft Machine was kind of, it was him and Robert, and Kevin that got it started.
Yeah, that was what, 1966 or something, way back.
6 or 7, I think. Yeah.
So what was it like? What was it like touring with Gong? You had Jilly Smythe there, and I saw some of the videos. It must have been an amazing tour.
It was. David was a special person. David. Yeah. As I say to people, he was the real thing. He wasn't someone playing at being in a rock band. He was like, he liked the alternative scene. He liked to be a sort of outsider. He loved his jazz. He loved experimental music. He liked a lot of comedy. There was a thing here called the Goon Show, like really kind of off the wall comedy. He would enjoy that as part of his thing, often part of his lyrics, as part of the Zero the Hero. So he was a lot of fun. He very much enjoyed words and playing with words and being creative. He's what I call, you get some band leaders, particularly if the band's kind of known around them, and they're very much central of everything. It's about them. It's their vision, and they want people to help carry it out. David, he was like a catalyst. He liked to make things happen around him. He liked to be creative. He liked to encourage other people to do things. So when I joined the band, he was interested in me writing songs and helping produce the album, and it wasn't just about him sharing songwriting credits and things. So he was a kind of creative person who, as I say, invited collaboration, and he was a bit crazy, but then you'd expect that. Well, it was fun to be around.
I saw him at the Squat Theater, just him alone with tapes, 1980, and it was fantastic. He had to read him poetry for sale and poems, and it's just such a creative guy.
Yeah, he was, and we got on well. So I enjoyed being with him and playing with the band at that time and touring. So it was a good experience. We did some great gigs. We played the Knitting Factory in New York. That was exciting.
Oh wow! Huh.
We played the Mount Fuji Rock Festival. That was exciting.
Wow. That sounds
and
like
we
fun.
toured. We toured quite a lot. So it was a good time, and kind of took me more into that kind of world, out of the kind of British jazz thing. So.
And then you did a lot with do you still do things with Steven Wilson on new records?
I
He's
do.
fantastic.
In fact, I can let you know. I don't think anyone's been told this, that there's going to be a new album that's going to be a collaboration between me and Steven coming out this autumn.
Wow.
Something very exciting, a bit different, really good. Yes, and he's also got a new album. I've guested on that as well. So
he's such a smart guy. I mean, so intuitive on music and historian of music. So he really
also very creative.
Right.
But interestingly, creative in a very, very different way from David Allen. Very different characters, different people, but very creative and very musical. He's fantastic. He's a good friend of mine, so I'm going to say.
Is there any records in particular that you could recommend to listen to for Steven Wilson that haven't heard his music? To start off with?
Well, there's so many.
I know. That's the problem. So many good ones.
I tell you what, there's three I kind of feature on. So I guess I'm gonna suggest those. I happen to think they're really, really good records, and they are "Stupid Dream" by Porcupine Tree.
Okay.
"Grace for Drowning," which is a solo album of Steve's, and "The Raven That Refused to Sing" is another of his solo albums. And the band actually flew to Los Angeles and recorded. I think it was East West. It's just between Hollywood and Sunset.
Oh, very neat.
Alan Parsons was engineering.
Oh my gosh!
Really good music, really beautifully recorded and mixed, and those three are great albums. They're certainly one aspect of Steve's work, but he's done so many things with so many bands and so many projects that he has. You could, I'm sure, go to his website and find 10
I know.
albums.
I've listened to his records. They're really good. Yeah. Well produced. Everything sounds really clean, and you adding to it just adds that extra touch. So
thank you. I always enjoy being involved in any project he's doing because he does everything so well.
Well, maybe I could have him on the show one day. Who knows? Everybody's so busy. It's hard.
Yeah.
Well, now I want to get to the next person. One of my favorite musicians, Robert Fripp.
Ah, okay.
Your records with him are fantastic. The ambience in those cathedrals is just beautiful.
Yeah, they're very special places to play because, as you say, the reverb and the ambience,
right?
Just the buildings, but also the kind of atmosphere that you get when you play in a beautiful cathedral or huge church or something. The music kind of has gives it a sort of air of seriousness. I think audiences respond in a slightly different way if they're sitting in a sacred space. The music's, it is what it is, but it's kind of very serious. It's not. I wouldn't say it's spiritual music, but then I would say it's spiritual.
Yeah, I would think so.
You could say it's kind of.
It is
spiritual sacred music for secular people, or spiritual music for non-spiritual people. There's something I find in that music with Robert that's somehow very deep and touching, but not just the way it is, really. Sometimes music takes you to a place where it's hard to describe.
That's true.
I believe that. About it, even when you're involved in the making of it, but you kind of know it's doing a certain thing, and sometimes it's dangerous even trying to put words to it. But that music with Robert, doing it the way we did it, very improvisatory based, but in those very special places, for me has been a very special thing.
How did you meet Robert Fripp? I mean, how did that occur?
Well, I was doing an album called Double Talk, one of my solo albums.
Right.
And I was interested in having Robert guest. And there were two connections at the time, which made me think, well, three connections that made me think I could ask him, because I didn't know him before. One was, Steven Wilson just mentioned it. Robert had been supporting Porcupine Tree, doing solo soundscapes.
Right.
So he was touring with Steven, and I knew Steven, so I thought I could ask Steven. Secondly, I did a session for David Sylvian for a wonderful album called Snowborn Sorrow.
Oh,
That's
he's great.
I recommend. And Robert had been in the studio recording for that. So David Sylvian, he'd been there the day I was there. So I thought I could
okay.
David. And then the third one was Sid Smith, who does a lot of the writing, either of sleeve notes and is involved in the King Crimson, the DGM website. And I knew him. So I can't remember who the first, who I approached first. But anyway, I wrote to one of them, spoke to one of them, and they said, they gave me his contact details, and I just wrote to him. And it was quite funny, actually, because at the time I wrote to him and said, this is who I am, and I'd be interested in you guesting on my next solo album. He said, oh, yes, I know you.
How about that?
You've seen that. I know you.
Oh,
you just
yeah.
recorded the David Sylvian album, and they used all your solos and none of mine.
Oh, boy.
No problem, he said. And I thought, oh, my God, that's terrible.
Oh, boy, you're in trouble. Oh, boy.
He's going to hate me. But he said he was very good. He was fine. He was kind of jokey about it. And then he said, yes, I'd be happy to. Why don't you come down to my studio? And I went down to his studio. And actually, he came to see a Soft Machine gig. He came to see a Soft Machine
that?
Met him there. And then he said, come to my studio. And I went to his studio, and he recorded some beautiful soundscapes for the Double Talk album, which I used on the album. And then he did it really quickly. So I sort of said, since we got all that done, I've got my flute here. Could we maybe do some recording, maybe some improvising duo stuff?
Right.
And that's exactly what happened. We recorded for, I don't know, 2 hours or 3 hours or something. And then we stopped for cakes and tea and all that.
Oh.
He used to like. He's not so much on the cakes these days, but he was very into his cakes.
Right, that's great.
And then those recordings were enough for the full first Travis and Fripp album, the Thread album.
Oh, how about that?
All from that one afternoon. And I obviously got Stephen to mix it, and I sent it to Robert to approve it. He was very happy with it, liked it, and it got released. And then, from there, we did some more concerts and more recordings. But that was kind of how it all happened in the first place.
Well, that's how, you two guys are master improvisers. And so I could see how that could just happen like that. And I heard Robert's very quick in the studio. He doesn't,
he was. He
first
was
or second take.
He was quick.
Right.
Very
so that you two guys were perfect for that. But to play in those cathedrals must have been just so magical. I mean, just the feel of it in those places.
It is, and it was. We did a variety of churches and cathedrals. There was one quite small to where his studio was at the time. And then we did a big one in fact, Wimborne, where he grew up. And in 2009, it culminated in an absolutely beautiful, huge, modern cathedral in Coventry, near Birmingham, a couple of hours from London.
Okay.
Which we recorded all the concerts, but that was it was for a jazz festival actually. But we did the concert. The concert was in surround sound.
Oh, wow.
At the end of the concert, Robert looked at me and he quietly said, "That's the next album."
How about that?
And we went away and I listened to the tapes, and I don't think I changed a single note, and that was the album. There was no edits or anything. It was just mixed. And
how about that?
But that space, that huge cathedral in Coventry was very special. I think there's been another live album there long before Tangerine Dream, I think, did a Coventry cathedral, but not many actually, but very special spaces.
But I feel like you could not play for like 10 years, come back together, and it'll still be your sound that you'll hear. And that's what's magic about bands that click, or musicians that click. They find it originally, and then maybe if you don't see anybody for a long time and you connect again, it's still there. And I see that. Yeah. I could hear that with you two.
Well, I mean, I've seen him quite a bit. I saw him quite recently, but we haven't recorded together in a long time. However, never say never. Maybe it's a good time. It's I could approach him about possibly doing something again. And I think you're right. I think we'd probably slip into that kind of zone.
Right.
Probably quite easily. But, you know, we're both quite busy, and you know, he's doing his various things. So, but I mean, it would certainly be something I'd be very interested in doing. Again, some future live performances and recordings with Robert, maybe in churches and cathedrals again. So
Now, are all these going to be
who knows?
on the website? I know they're on. Are they on his website
Yeah,
to download? Right, most of them.
that's right.
Okay.
There's a lot on his website for download. Quite a lot of the concerts we did, and then there's actually 5 official album releases.
Right. Okay. Aware of that. Okay.
And now I think now they're on Spotify as well as, you know, physical format and vinyl
Now I have
and
to
stuff.
make sure everybody goes to that. I'll put the links after the
Okay.
show, whatever you want me to put up. You could write it, have the description, and that's what I usually do. And then I'll put it on a description after this. So now up to the present, what are you currently working on now? I mean, as far as new music.
Okay, so new music. So mainly there's a lot of soft machine activity. So in 2 days' time, I fly to San Diego.
Wow.
And we're going to be playing San Diego. Then we've got 2 nights, 4 shows at the Baked Potato in Los Angeles. And then we're flying up to Oakland, just north of San Francisco, where we're playing at Yoshi's.
Okay.
Which is going to be great. And then in September, we're flying back to the East Coast. And we're going to be doing 3 weeks of concerts around the East Coast of America, which is going to be great. We did a few around the East Coast last October, I think it was, but coming back to the East Coast in September, which is going to be great. And then there's some British dates later in the year. So there's and then we might be thinking about doing some more writing and, you know, maybe some more recording in the future. So there's quite a lot going on with that.
Sounds like it.
And as I say, I have got this secret. Don't tell anyone.
Okay, first to know, right? Okay.
Secret, album. It's a kind of very meditative, quite ambient, but immersive audio project. With
I
Steve
can't wait to
Wilson.
hear this.
So keep an eye out for that.
And when's that going to come out? When's that?
I think it's going to be September, October. It's going to be called Aeolus. A-E-L.
Oh, I like that name.
A-E-L-O. I can't even spell it. Aeolus. That's it. Aeolus.
Okay, I'll look for that.
And that's going to be a Dolby Atmos surround sound ambient.
Oh wow, better yet. So I'm going to try to catch your show in New York. I'm in New Jersey, so I'm only an hour from New York. So I'll have to look your dates up.
We're probably doing a few things around the East Coast. So I think the dates are now on the Soft Machine website, which is softmachine.org. And the listing should be there. So hopefully there'll be something not too far away for.
So who's the band? Who are the band members now? Current band members.
So John Etheridge is the leader. He's the guitarist, and he's been in Soft Machine since 1975. So
wow. Okay.
A long time.
Yeah.
I've been in it 17 years now or something, and then until recently we had John Marshall, who, as you know, legendary, and
right.
1972. He sadly was ill, and then he passed away recently. So we've been playing with this wonderful drummer called Asaf Serkis, who's very, very good. And he's actually the drummer Robert Wyatt is a big fan of his and has written.
Oh wow, that's a big plus.
So that's kind of a nice connection as well. So he's wonderful on drums. And Fred Baker is the bass player, and he's been very involved in the Canterbury scene, so playing with people like Elton Dean and Pip Pile and
love Pip Pile.
Yeah, so a lot of those guys Fred played with a lot, so he kind of knows this kind of music, so he fits in perfectly, and he's a very, very, very fine bass player.
Oh, that sounds great. Lost you there for a second. Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's going well, so this should be great, this tour.
Oh, I can't think of anything else. I mean, this has been fantastic. Thank you for doing this. No, I mean, pleasure. You've really been great, and I'll make sure that let me know what links you want me to put up for people to follow the tour and everything else.
To be honest, the main tour, softmachine.org, which has all the tour dates and the Soft Machine information, and then my website is theotravis.com.
Okay,
it's straightforward. And that's got other projects I'm doing and recordings.
Fantastic.
And you can write to me through that if anyone wants to get in touch, and it's got a shop and the usual kind of website thing.
Right.
So, but those 2 websites, if people want to, just check out what's going on and maybe some dates that they can see or recordings, they're a good place to start.
Well, you're fantastic. You've been still so busy, and you've created such wonderful music for everybody. So we want to thank you for that.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, Dennis.
You too. Anyway, thanks again. Have a good night. See you.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Take care.